Okay.
Intervals.
Well,
We gotta solve for y.
okay, we got the interval from
1/2.
-1 to -1/2, right? So here's our interval. Now there's some function, we're not, as I say, we're going to graph this function in the pre-calculus class. But right now, just want to illustrate what you got to do for rate of change because people are not doing it. Okay? You're doing part of it, but not understanding everything that needs to be done. Well, okay, so I'm going to say, well, let's see. F of -1 is 2 times -1 squared plus -1 cubed, and that equals, well, you work it out, it's 1, right?
1.
Yeah, you just plug -1 in here, you're going to get 1.
Oh.
Okay? That's going to give you 2, that's going to give you -1. Then f of -1/2 is 2 times -1/2 squared plus -1/2 cubed. Well, that's going to be 2 times 1/4 plus a -1/8. That negative's written a little small there, but clearly it's going to be negative because you're cubing a negative number. Negative times a negative times a negative will give you a negative. So that's 1/2 minus 1/8 equals 3/8. Okay? So now we know we have the point -1 1 and the point 1/2 -1/2 3/8. Okay. Now, why is it that we're even doing this? It's because the average rate of change as we defined it over a week ago. An average rate of change is a slope. That's how we define it in this course. There are other ways to define it that I've used in the past, but I kind of like this. At least we're going to see how it works. Because you know how to do a slope. You just do the fundamental triangle. Okay? So average rate of change is a slope between the endpoints. We'll worry about what it means as we go through the course. But that's it. The endpoints are, well, it's the interval, right? I didn't write out all the words. Average rate of change of y with respect to x on an x interval is the slope of the graph between the points corresponding to the endpoints. So that's an abbreviated form of the definition, but if you've done what you do, you know, what a lot of people are doing, you'll do this. Now, I talked about people not giving me the information they need to give me. I'll ask for the average rate of change of function of this interval. I won't see this. I might see this, and I might see this, and then it stops. So I don't even know that the question asked for the rate of change. Okay? Because I go.
Because you don't see people squaring and putting a box around.
Well, all I see is this. Sometimes all I see is the graph. What's that mean? You're not communicating. Now, of course, I know, okay, this is problem 1.8 selection 7. Well, eventually I'll catch on because some people are putting the rate of change down, that's a rate of change. But in the first place, I'm not going to grade these papers by looking back and forth between documents. I want to see what I see because if you're on a job, you don't want to do that to whoever you're reporting to. Okay? Also, because I don't want to take a lot of extra time on this so I can make up all kinds of evil things to do in class Okay, there's a finite amount of time in anybody's life, okay? There are better things to do than to try to grade something that isn't in the form that it needs to be in, right? I'm preaching to the choir here because most of y'all are doing quite well with that aspect. But this is going out to everybody. Well, most people aren't ever going to look at it. Okay?
Spread the word.
Yeah. Okay, so average rate of change is slope between the endpoints. So just a little digression in the problem about what it means to show what you're doing. I need to know that you're trying to find an average rate of change. I don't want to have to go do research to figure out what you were supposed to do in this problem. You need to tell me. And you can do that briefly because I know what I'm looking at. You don't have to give me paragraphs upon paragraphs. You do have to indicate what you're doing, and you all are doing real well with that. Okay, anyhow, average rate of change is slope between the endpoints, right? And that's what we're asked for. So you would want to write this down. Show me that you know what the definition is. Okay, well then, okay. And it's the slope between the graph points corresponding to the endpoints, but again, I'm abbreviating. So we draw a fundamental triangle here. We see that the rise is 1/2 and the slope is negative 5/8. Okay? So I can put a box here. 1/2, well, negative 5/8 divided by 1/2 is negative 5/4. Okay? Now I've documented it. So now I say, okay,
I'm gonna write mine in red.
I'm like his Elizabeth.
and I would accept that. You don't have to put too many words in there.
Rate of change equals slope
Okay.
equals-
Well, that's how you do a question of this nature. It's very straightforward, and I find on the test and on other things, people are doing a lot of this,
He's saying.
but not showing me that they understand what any of it means in terms of rate of change.
That he asking for.
Okay?
Basically, like, we're doing everything
So
for-
your final, I asked for the average rate of change. You have to identify your average rate of change, or I suspect that you don't really know the connection. Even though you're doing all this stuff, you're going to get some partial credit. But no more than half if you don't tell me.
That's what I ain't gonna lie, cause I know you